party of common sense.
If you're a Democrat like me and you're still feeling the sting from the election, I have some good news. If there's one thing you can count on with the diapered one, it's that no matter who you are, an ex-wife, a contractor, a politician, even family, he will eventually stab you in the back.
And I don't blame him for sticking with his daughter, but his daughter is a very dumb individual, very dumb. She's a radical war hawk. Let's put her with a rifle standing there with 9 barrels shooting at her, okay? Let's see how she feels about it. You know, when the guns are trained on her face.
Liz Cheney is a hardcore conservative. She voted with Trump for 4 years only to be attacked by Fat Donnie after he lost in 2020 and acted like the bitch that he be. Same applies for almost everyone who's worked in his inner circle. He turns on them all.
Donald Trump has said that he would put you in charge of the public health agencies. What exactly does that look like?
Well, he's been very specific in what he said. He wants me to do 3 things. 1, clean up the corruption of the agencies, particularly the conflicts of interest that have turned those agencies into captive agencies for the pharmaceutical industry and the food industry, the other industries that they're supposed to be regulating. Number 2, to return those agencies to the gold standard science, the empirically based, evidence-based medicine that they were famous for when I was a kid. And number 3, to make America healthy again, to end the chronic disease epidemic. And President Trump has told me that he wants to see measurable, concrete results within 2 years.
That's RFK Jr., and the last year's been tough on him. Brain-eating worms, killing bears, and staging their deaths in Central Park. And now, after supporting Trump for the last 6 months, this.
I'm sorry, you're fired. Get out of here.
Already, Trump is quietly distancing himself from Kennedy, just days after the election, amid speculation that Kennedy could actually be in charge of basically everything health-related. But of course, that would be insane, and Trump knows it.
Can you name any vaccines that you think are good?
I think some of the live virus vaccines are probably averting more problems than they're causing. There's no vaccine that is, safe and effective.
As you know, Kennedy is not only a vaccine denier who wants to remove fluoride from the drinking water, he's also been the weird subject of nutball stories involving animals, both in his head and his life.
And they're reporting that doctors, in a deposition, that RFK said doctors found a worm in his brain that had eaten part of his brain and then died.
The concern in Trump's world is twofold. 1, Trump cronies are low-life, mouth-breathing, backstabbing mopes motivated only by self-interest. And 2, they're evil, not crazy.
It's not going to happen like you think it's going to happen.
Trump's wafflecock posse are worried if Kennedy could make it through a security check for a cabinet position. And if so, what kind of damage might his insane views pose?
If vaccines are working for somebody, I'm not going to take them away. People ought to have a choice, and that choice ought to be informed by the best information. So I'm going to make sure the scientific safety studies and efficacies are out there, and people can make individual assessments about whether that product is going to be good for them.
I want to make clear that you're here to talk about the science and the facts behind all of this. So let's just start with Mr. Kennedy's vaccine skepticism, which is well documented in interviews. He's questioned their safety, linked vaccines to autism and to cancer. Do any of those claims have merit?
I'm also a pediatrician and practiced pediatrics for more than 30 years. And I can say that there's nothing I did as a pediatrician that had more positive impact on the health of the children I was caring for than making sure that they were vaccinated fully and on time. I'm old enough that I've seen many of the infections that we vaccinate against appear in children and the devastating consequences. We are fortunate that we have the safest vaccine system in the world. Before a vaccine is given to a child or an adult, it goes through extensive testing. To raise these concerns and to say, well, it's parental choice, gives me great concern.
And while the worm in his brain story is nuts, it's Kennedy's war on vaccines that have caused even nut jobs like Ben Carson to pause. Though Kennedy said we're not going to take vaccines away from anybody, it would be easy for him to do that by calling for more studies and delaying access to even basic vaccines for mumps and measles, as well as polio.
Will Donald Trump seek revenge on his enemies?
It's the enemy from within, all the scum that we have to deal with that hate our country. That's a bigger enemy than China and Russia
At the top of his list is Republican Liz Cheney, who campaigned for Kamala.
Let's put her with a rifle standing there with 9 barrels shooting at her, okay?
Today, Cheney posted, "All Americans are bound, whether we like the outcome or not, to accept the results of our elections."
Trump's revenge is rarely personal. He's psychopathic. He's a paranoid, delusional sociopath, and that makes it tough for anyone to be close to him. And from day one, Trump knew this would happen. RFK's weird takes on medicine had an effect on Tiny Fingers, but all Trump had to do was promise Kennedy the world, knowing it would never happen. And after the election, he told him to F off. How many votes did Kennedy hand to Trump? Unclear, but Trump is now in a position of true invulnerability. With the Supreme Court's immunity and the statute of limitations on his crimes, the GOP and the House all red, and ironically his inability to run for office again, Trump has the freedom to do what he wants. But what does he really want? That's the easiest question in the world. He wants to make more money and live the rest of his life like a king. There's always been infighting inside the Trump circle, and that will only intensify. It started back in 2016 when Jared got Chris Christie canned from the campaign because Chris Christie had years ago prosecuted Jared's dad. But that was just the beginning. No one liked Ivanka except for Donnie, and she and Jared set out to make millions, which they did, and now they've vanished. Pence and Trump were never close, and Pence lacked the vision to see the depths of Trump's malevolence.
It went downhill from there.
And there are the ladies of The View, specifically Sunny Hostin.
She's a dummy.
And Whoopi Goldberg.
She was so filthy dirty, disgusting. What a loser she is.
Today, they had this to say.
Going forward, the convicted felon box on employment applications better be taken off.
And what about those late-night hosts who have made Trump the butt of so many jokes?
Finally, I made an enemies list. I mean, obviously, there's no guarantee I'll be arrested, but it's an honor just to be nominated, you know?
Trump has lashed out at Taylor Swift and Oprah for endorsing Kamala.
Actually, I'm disappointed. I think Oprah's become a major divider in our country. And I think, frankly, she should be ashamed of herself.
Jack Smith should be considered mentally deranged, and he should be thrown out of the country.
Trump isn't going to put Rachel Maddow or any of the aforementioned in jail. There's no upside for him. He won and they lost. And he's smart enough to know by now they'll always hate him. What he won't be able to handle, though, is the aftermath of 2026 and a Democratic blue wave, which will happen. To what extent? I don't know. But count on this. Kicking Kennedy to the curb is a true sign that Trump still wants to be loved, as vaccines save both blue and red lives. What we don't know is how crazy Trump will be over the next 4 years and who will have his ear.
All I can say is strap in.
But I've seen enough politics to know what's next. Trump will align himself with those who can deliver the biggest bang for the buck, not retribution against his enemies. But if I'm wrong about that, and I could be, here's my question. There are 350 million Americans, of which 250 million can vote. So there's basically a split between the left and the right, which leaves about 100 million Americans too busy playing Wordle and drinking at noon to give a shit. And while neither party may appeal to them, I can guarantee this. Trump's 1984 dystopian roundup of his enemies won't. While it might be tough days ahead for Democrats and possibly RFK, I say prepare for the future with an eye on the past.
In the midst of the French Revolution on October 16th, 1793, Queen Marie Antoinette of France met a tragic fate when she was beheaded by the guillotine.
Marie Antoinette said, "Let him eat cake." And how did that work out for her?
Damn right. This is not a normal election.
Whether the women like it or not.
Suck my fat one. Who's with me? Yes! Tick-tock, mother...
They're eating the dogs.
This isn't their Republican Party anymore.
Trust me.
Shut the f*** up, Darren.
Who's with me? Oh, yeah, the lie.
Indictable.
Out of sheer morbid curiosity, I'm allowing this freak show to continue.
I don't want to talk about this stuff.
Am I wrong?
Yes!
Tick-tock,
You're in a lot of trouble, Donnie.
I think he's crazy.
I'm Chip Franklin.